your work for the New Jersey government on Twitter, basically smacking down people who were saying dumb things. That's how I choose to interpret it.
The most notorious, the thing that put NJGov on the map was the response of your mom to a specific tweet. And I think a lot of it is like confidence in your own self and in your own brand.
And to know that there are folks out there who find good teammates, who really build something truly differentiated, I think is remarkable.
I mean, we were passing, minimum wage laws, and equity laws, and we were just sort of like doing things that were empowering to people, that were unifying to folks. I think that was a really big part of it.
Welcome to Building Value. I'm Jason Nellis. It's hard enough building a brand when it's a private business, even harder when it's a public business. But when it represents a government and a current administration with specific legislative agendas, you're navigating a minefield. I don't think there's a nice way to put that. But hopefully, today's conversation will show you that not only can you navigate that minefield, you can do some really remarkable stuff with it. My guest today is Pearl Gabel, who from 2018 to 2021 ran the New Jersey Public Government Twitter account. Along with her creative partner, Megan, Pearl built this account from scratch and became one of the leading voices of the last few years in social media and government. In our conversation, Pearl explains how they started building a unique voice specific to New Jersey. And I think when we all think of Jersey, we know what that specific voice might sound like. But more importantly, she talked about how she used that swell of social support to advocate and promote the agenda of the then New Jersey governor. And we also talked about how difficult it can be when you've built somebody else's brand to navigate those waters on your own and do the thing for yourself that you've been doing for others. Because sometimes it forces you to listen to your own voice over and over again on a podcast, and it can be really grating. Not that I have any experience with that. Let me know what you think of today's podcast. Leave a review, a comment, a like. If you loved it, share it with somebody and subscribe. Please do those things because they really do help. And here is Pearl Gabel, the voice of @NJGov. Pearl, thanks so much for joining. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Jason.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm glad you're excited. This will be fun. I want to start with the obvious thing, which is that of your body of work, I think the one that is most public, the thing that was pointed out to me by our mutual friend Nathan Alabach, is your work for the New Jersey government on Twitter, basically smacking down people who were saying dumb things. That's how I choose to interpret it. Yes, back and forth. One of the things that's always interesting to me when I talk to people is their background and how they ended up getting into the role they're known for. Can you give me a little bit of your history and sort of how you ended up working for the New Jersey government?
Well, first of all, thanks, Jason. That's how we roll in New Jersey. We smack down the haters as a general rule. I definitely did not plan to be sort of that, have the opportunity to be that voice of New Jersey, but I came into it through like just a series of many career changes, all of it starting with communication. So when I was younger in high school, I loved poetry. I kind of evolved that into journalism. I studied journalism. I then sort of became a photojournalist after becoming passionate about photography. Sort of swung that into being a staff photographer at the Daily News in New York, where I cut my teeth. I would say it was one of those like fundamental career experiences where I was sort of exposed to everyone and everything. And it was quite brutal. And then worked for a variety of places, learned video. Video was an extraordinary way to a bridge to kind of putting all the skills of like writing and visual and narrative together. I became the director of video for the city of New York. And then from there, I went into the role as digital director for the state of New Jersey, which was running all the social media accounts, for the governor, the first lady. There was no state of New Jersey account at that time. But since I had been at the city of New York, where they had a city of New York dedicated page, I thought, New Jersey probably needed one. Um, all of this was sort of like this evolution of like putting all of these skills together from like a decade plus of jobs that were seemingly kind of not even connected to each other. You're a writer, and then you're a photographer, and then you're a video producer, and then like who are you? Like what are you doing? Like what's your purpose
Yeah.
here?
You're a
And
Swiss Army knife.
I'm a Swiss Army knife. Yeah, I mean, I'm like editing video. I'm sort of traveling. I'm taking combat classes, combat photography classes. Like, what am I doing? Who am I? Um, Social media is pretty much like this perfect combination of everything as well. It requires like the Swiss Army knife. My own personal politics aside, I thought Governor Murphy was fantastic because he was really open to a lot of different things. Um, it was one of those politicians and offices that were like a little bit more less hierarchical, more conversational. So like the first thing, everybody has everybody's phone number. We're all collaborating. When we say when I say I want to do an account, it's like, okay, do an account. You know, and yeah, it was fun, and it was a really natural experience. And that was 2018, January 2018, the inauguration, and the previous governor, Chris Christie, um, had taken his social media accounts with him
Yeah.
like a thief in the night. Which
As if he took them over a certain
yeah,
bridge of some sort, gated,
yeah, he
perhaps.
took them over a certain bridge, which is doesn't generally happen in government because since the accounts are run by government appointments or workers, you can't really take them, but he did. So we started from zero on everything, and that was a great experiment as well.
Talk me through then how you build that strategy. What experiments were you thinking through? What landed you on that really unique and very New Jersey voice?
I lived outside of New Jersey for more than a decade before moving back in 2018. And people made fun of New Jersey. People ask, where are you from? And, I'd say New Jersey, and you hear a lot of things. It's like the armpit of America. It's like I'm sorry you're from New Jersey. It's fun. You're an underdog a little bit. You almost so I learned in my time away from the state that how to defend the state. And by the way, it's easy to it's a lovely place. I mean, there's so much diversity of like geography, diversity of people. The notorious attitude is fun,
Mm-hmm.
and so when I was thinking about like who would a New Jersey voice be, I kind of already had it in my head, which was like the sort of like underdog punching up. I did think a lot about one of my brothers in that voice. He's like a real Jersey guy. I had a great partner in crime, which was Megan Coyne, who was sort of like my Gen Z assistant, who was really like another Swiss Army knife, really talented individual. It's a great combination of like being an old millennial plus like a younger kind of like more online person. It was like it's sort of like a nice balance that we found, and that was great. As you all know, I think you have a lot of listeners who are content creators or who work in this space, and like it's not something that I mean, it's hard to do this alone. Like it's really to have a team, and to have a team of like a balanced talents and stuff like that is so important. And that was really, and you get lucky. Often you get lucky not choosing it. So I definitely got lucky with that.
Well, I really appreciate you calling that out, because I think for a lot of folks, content creation, whether it's for marketing purposes or your own, edification, it's a lonely endeavor. And to know that there are folks out there who find good teammates who really build something truly differentiated, I think is remarkable. And I love too that when you talk about an underdog punching up, like what a perfect way to encapsulate the voice of New Jersey. I my grandparents are from Randolph outside of Morristown. One of my best friends is from Summit. I have whenever I hear a proper New Jersey local start to go off on a tangent about something, that's exactly the voice I hear. And for you to be able to translate that so perfectly into Twitter, which is a constant fight, right? I mean, back in the day, particularly when it was still kind of fun, maybe not so much now these days, I'm sad to say, but back then when there was a lot more sort of interactive community, I think than maybe exists now. You displayed such a sense of fun and joy in all of that, right? It wasn't meant to be mean. You weren't trying to push back on people who were talking down to Jersey. You were just trying to. It felt to me, at least on the outside, it felt like you were just having fun, and hopefully everybody else was too. And you just had a very specific point of view about it. Is that how you remember the time? Am I reading sort of your interpretation of those times and running those accounts the same way?
That is so interesting because I just thought of something that could be the explanation for it all, and you've kind of unearthed it. When I was moving down to New Jersey, this was like a really enormous transition for me. I'd been through a lot in New York. I was single. I was sort of on my own. I was fairly isolated, and I moved down to this. I had gotten that job, and I moved down to this small town in New Jersey, and I was like I wanted to like begin again. I wanted to like refresh again. I didn't know what was coming. And like during the time of like starting up that account and sort of making it work and sort of doing this good work here and transitioning careers, all of that was during the time of like a couple of years of me getting settled, working through the isolation, meeting my partner who would become my husband, who would become the father of my son. Like it was kind of this journey of like self. It was a journey of self discovery, a journey of self of who I was, where I was, at the exact time of doing this work. And I never even considered that might, I mean, it sounds silly now because it would make sense. I never considered that would be like an influence of doing this New Jersey, kind of like settling into like becoming myself, becoming like creating like this sort of alter ego id as I went along, finding that confidence, finding a certain confidence that I never had. I mean, I had such a lifetime of professional. I had a pretty difficult professional career. I definitely was like put down. I felt put down a bunch in a lot of jobs. I felt like I couldn't quite get the opportunities to do the things that I really wanted to do. So it was always like pounding at doors and pounding on ceilings. This was kind of like a renaissance or something, a mini renaissance. I don't want it wasn't like Michelangelo here. This was like the freaking, New Jersey Turnpike of
No,
Renaissance.
but but it was
Yeah.
still. I mean, I think what you're calling out here was that you had a differentiated kind of space. Maybe that's not the right word, but a kind of blank slate to really make your own. And you know, I think sometimes some people take that and they imprint all of their challenges onto it, and sometimes they take those challenges and turn them into something interesting and enjoyable and relatable and funny, and also a little bit smackdown, but in a lighthearted way. And that's kind of what I read from that. I mean, I followed. Again, I was following our friend Nathan who ran Steakum, and he and I had become friendly, and he pointed me to a bunch of folks. You were among them, and for me, I got to be honest. At first, I thought for a brief moment, I think the first time I pulled up the account, I thought it was a parody account because it was just so sharply Jersey. It had that very East Coast, and very, New York's little brother kind of approach, but also in a way that made me feel like this was somebody who really got it. And I think that's what I really appreciated about what you did. You really articulated a voice that was specific to whom you were representing, right? And there is one thing about everybody who is from New Jersey is whether you're from North Jersey or South or Central, whether you worship at the altar of the Short Hills Mall or you're in Newark on your way into the city, like that sharpness, but that camaraderie behind it is it was perfectly encapsulated by what you were creating. And I think what a great representation of New Jersey government, right? We get it. We get the joke. Forget you guys. Let's talk about the real stuff too.
There's a couple times I cried, like in the silliest things, like over just feeling community, like feeling like a this thing washed over me of like being from the same place with shared experience with like a similar identity. There's something that we're missing. Let me let me just back up for a second. So my husband is Tunisian. He's got a strong Tunisian identity, right? There's the food, there's the history, there's literally, you have like thousands of years of your family being from one place. There's like a rootedness to like your identity, right? That like pretty much m- most people in the States are diaspora. I mean, I'm one. You're probably one. Most right. Most people are like this sort of like diaspora. You think about like the identity of like a being like an American is a. I mean, you could have a lot of philosophical discussions about it, but there's not. I mean, I haven't really felt as strongly about that as one would about their, you know, if you were from a place like Tunisia or from a place that you've been through, you know what I mean, the sort of legacy, ancestry. There was something that I found in the like embodying this New Jersey idea that tapped into that. I mean, from like the food to the to like the way you talk to like the attitude, the way you say water to like the knowledge of like place that was like tapping into that sort of baser self identifier thing I've always wanted, I've always looked for. I think a lot of people crave that kind of sense of place for themselves and identity for themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, that's an incredibly universal theme. The idea of connection, of home, of identity, um, and to bring all of that home into a Twitter account and other accounts too. It's not as if you were solely focused on
I
Twitter, but
hope.
but to bring that voice to all of that, what a great way to also represent the government of the people, right? I mean, there's something about that I think is really interesting because then you marry that with, you know, government initiatives and talking about programs and really talking about the ways in which that administration is trying to lift people up. It's such a fine needle to thread. Did it feel that way, or did it feel like it came together more easily when you started talking about all that?
I love that you're tying that to like the things that the administration did, because this would not have worked like that if it was an administration that wasn't like kind of actively working to uplift people. I mean, we were passing, minimum wage laws and like equity laws, and we were just sort of like doing things that were empowering to people, that were unifying to folks. um I think that was a really big part of it, and why it was possible. I mean, it probably was also possible because I don't have like a specific background in government or political communications necessarily. So there was like a little outsidery feeling to it. As a journalist, I mean, ever since the days of that I was sort of like running and gunning, I always used to say, so, like my knowledge, like sort of my knowledge base is like wide but not deep, right? Like a lot of things, just a little bit. Probably podcasters too. You kind of have to be. So yeah, that's something that was really a part of it. When I over the years since I did that NJGov thing, I've been asked to speak to folks similar, like not podcasts, but to groups and to things, try to explain it. And I also tie in the personality to like a sort of bullied kid. I was a lot of people have this experience. I mean, in elementary school, I was kind of like a bullied kid, and a lot of the and New Jersey is a bullied kid, and a lot of the responses that I may have done, and Megan and I may have done through NJGov, were like responses that I wish that I had done as like a 10-year old in gym class.
As a former 10-year-old in gym class who couldn't throw a ball or catch to save his life, whose father reminds him of that pretty much every time they have a sports related conversation, I can appreciate that and how frustrating that must have been. And the joy that then you can take those, several decades worth of well-honed, responses and then spew them at idiots on the internet. I'm a fan, may I just say.
Did you guys have to do the rope climb?
Everybody had to do the rope climb. It was the dumbest exercise.
Horrible.
Nobody wanted to do the rope climb.
I had a nightmare about that recently.
Oh.
I really did. So the most notorious, the thing that put NJGov on the map, really to start off, and because we'd been doing it for a while, but not many people were paying attention, was the response of your mom to a specific tweet, right? That was, I mean, people remember that because it was a government account saying that, and it got like 80 something thousand retweets or something crazy like that. I mean, that was definitely in that zone. Like, this is what I would respond. This is what my brother would have responded to who let New Jersey have a Twitter account.
Well, not only that, I feel like there were a good couple of delete your accounts as well from the opposition or from other folks who were dunking on Jersey in general, which I always appreciated because I felt the same way.
That was it was so fun. And you know what? Like any great project and any great branding, you have to leave at some point and other folks take it over, put on new personalities, just keep it going.
Was there any initiative that you worked on the administrative level that then you were able to help really grow or project or inspire, followers of NJGov through your work? It was something related to minimum wage, as you mentioned earlier, or perhaps, a new policy that the administration wanted to put out.
Every time there's an announcement or there's a bill being passed or things are going on is an opportunity for a story. There's an opportunity to find a narrative. We had a really tight communications team with like comms director Mahen, Edwin, the sort of photographer, multimedia, Megan, and the rest of the team. And anytime something would happen, it'd be like, what can we do around it? We're going to announce that minimum wage is going to be raised. We got to hear the voices of the people who are going to be affected by it. So it's like putting together like a production, and making it happen in real time at the event, putting that out, getting it picked, obviously retweeting on NJGov, collaborating with other agencies, reaching out to the press to see if they'll share this on TV or whatever. We're making, we're definitely we were trying to make things that would tell the story in a really like effective way. When COVID hit, that was a big thing during the administration. Obviously we were doing daily press conferences. That was all digital, all live. We had to find different ways of spreading, like nobody knew what was going on. We were all confused. We were trying to follow guidance. You remember 2020? I mean, we all try to forget, but that was wild. Those were wild times, and we really had no idea what was going on. We were trying to different ways to spread the message of like social distancing, getting vaccine, staying in your house. So there were multiple ways we were doing that through NJGov, through the governor's accounts, through the website. We were using memes. That was big. And a lot of those memes I had not picked up myself. They just weren't on my timeline. Megan had picked them up and pointed them out, and we had sort of like rolled with different memes. We were like the sheriff of social distancing. Um, we were we we were looping with celebrities. So like we looped with like the Situation from the Jersey Shore,
Oh, yes.
and many other folks who were more than happy to like record videos with us to like spread out. I mean, it was just like, and we wanted to be as clear and concise as possible. We collaborated on doing a dashboard that was updating on real time about what was happening in New Jersey. There's an Office of Innovation in New Jersey where like they're trying to be not as behind as most governments are, which is like incredible. Um, they're like leaps and bounds moving forward. Um, how do you like post do social media posts about like deaths and hospitalizations and like do this stuff like really seriously? And during that time, people were getting their information from social media a lot. So, I mean, it was important to do. The some of the press was even getting their information from social media, these social media accounts, right? Um, so yeah, that I think though that COVID really stood out to me as a way that we could like innovate and find different ways to reach our audiences.
That's a pretty good
There's
one.
so many. That's a good one. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many. It's just like in New York City, working as like the director of video too. I mean, there's like hundreds and hundreds of. I can't even. I like go through the archives, and I'm like, I can't believe that I was there and doing this, and this was amazing. It's just great. I mean, it reminds me. It was a hard transition from journalism into government communications, but both have like a similar thing to me, which is like that concept of like the life of kings. I know. Have you ever heard that? It's like how journalism is described. It was sort of a quote by I'm forgetting now, but the concept being that it's you as a person can experience either actually or just by being there the highs and lows and everything of life. Right? You're on the top of the mountain and you're underneath underneath the ground and everywhere in between. So that's like just like a very cool part about this sort of government and journalism, the similarities between them. It's to me it's like this great like living life and experiencing the world and helping folks.
Yeah.
Of course, let's not forget that.
Obviously not. But
Obviously not.
to your point, there's so many
Yeah.
different factors that have to go into it.
Hmm.
Um, you
My
left in
God,
20. Oh, go ahead.
Jason.
Sorry.
By the way, I bought a Stanley Cup. I'm so embarrassed.
Why
I'm
does that?
pointing it out.
Okay, let's take an interlude for a
Yeah,
second. Why does buying a Stanley Cup bother you? There's a reason they're popular.
I did see it on TikTok.
All right. Well, that's a perfect transition into the next topic I'd like to think about, which is, short form content,
Yeah.
particularly since you left the government and started your own marketing, your own independent marketing work, I should say. Um, the the viral nature of TikTok, and I mean that on many different ways and in many different contexts, has really overtaken the conversation. I was just at VidCon last week before you and I record this, where everything was really focused on short form and thinking about gaming, and we've moved away from this concept of longer form content, fuller conversations are what we want to see online. And now everybody's talking about how even if TikTok goes away in the US, short form content is king. That's what everybody's banking on right now. As you work for these other clients and these sort of new directions you're looking at, are you seeing that reflected in the conversations you're having? Are these are brands and other businesses thinking in that same context, or are they still sort of we want to think about it even maybe as just traditional advertising, let alone sort of a broader marketing and comm strategy?
A few years ago, people were questioning about TikTok. It maybe wasn't included in a marketing plan, but or you had to sort of like try to convince a client. Not anymore. It has been proven. You cannot argue with a billion monthly users or whatever they have right now. There's something cool about TikTok. Something that I love, which is, I mean, forget the short form content for a second. It's the algorithm versus just sort of being popular or having a bully pulpit, and that's how you'll get the eyeballs. There's a way for, as a TikTok user, for you to sign up, have no followers whatsoever, do a video or short form video, and go viral, like even without having followers. Like it's pretty remarkable. It's awesome. There's a certain leveling of the playing field to that sense that like you would have an opportunity to get those eyes.
Yeah.
Without
But I
paying.
think it's also interesting too that there's a pro and a con to that, right? You're absolutely right. Disintermediating your follower count from the ability to go viral and have a broad impact on the platform is immensely powerful. But on the other hand, I don't know that that also means that stickiness is any better or worse. In fact, maybe it is worse. We used to joke back in the days at Meta, maybe not joke. That's probably not the right word. Let's try that again before somebody sues me. But we used to discuss that, the follower on TikTok is not worth the same as the follower on Instagram. And that stickiness was a real challenge for a lot of influencers who were moving platforms. Do you think that the businesses or the personalities that you work with, do they understand that? Do they see that challenge too? Or is it something that maybe it's just they're so not focused on it, it doesn't really matter to them?
A lot of the campaigns I'm working on right now are that they're actually campaigns. So you get it viewed once, it's good. I'm not concentrating as much on building follower count as I am on building those eyeballs. So that's why it works. And I'm curious, when you were at Meta, did that conversation apply to Reels too? It was like, okay, Reels is like great, but it's not going to increase your account, your follower count.
At the time it was, trying to remember exactly when. So I left Meta in April of last year, 2023. So when we were having these discussions, it would have been late 21, early 22. And I think Reels was still finding its footing a little bit. There was still something of a focus on your main gallery on Instagram, but Reels, there was a lot of investment in making Reels work, which I think by the time I left, the fruit of that labor was finally starting to hit. And I think that's how bullish everybody was on that being the primary TikTok competitor. Not to mention, I mean, again, the full network effect of having an Instagram account that can then feed into your Facebook account, that can feed into your Facebook pages, that then can be directly linked to WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, right? All these different things feeding into one another. I think my memory is that senior leadership at Meta was very bullish on all of that, providing a larger long-term lift for content creators and casual users than than TikTok, where we were already starting to see how much money TikTok was pouring into advertising for that top of funnel, but their retention rates and their ability for their, particularly the influencers with large followings who were going live and not seeing a lot of value out of their lives, there was some signal we were seeing that stickiness was not comparable. And so I think for a lot of folks internal to Meta, the discussion was really focused on not so much how do we beat TikTok at that virality, so much as how do we improve stickiness, because that's how we outlast them.
Right. I
don't think I'm breaking NDA by any of that. I think I've been pretty vague for the most part.
How long has it been since you said goodbye?
Over a year.
Okay.
But I don't think I'm saying anything that's particularly. I don't think I'm saying anything that wasn't covered in a Business Insider article at some point. So I think
you could right. You could always cut that part.
I don't know. We'll see. I might just keep it in for funsies.
Yeah, for funsies. Let's see. Let's
sure.
Experiment. Let's experiment with your livelihood and your move to France.
Joke's on you. Nobody will listen. Anyway.
Exactly. I'll quickly plug what I'm up to now, since it's been
Please.
a few years since I've I've been with New Jersey and I've been with the government. Uh, it's constant learning and evolution. I went into agency life, and then I started my own agency for a little bit, and then joined up with this powerhouse of women and other professionals that it's just five of us, um, to launch this company called Moxie Strategies. We're based in Asbury Park, New Jersey, of course. It's a national public affairs, advertising, um, and data and analytics agency, as like an overview. Anyway, check us out. But the interesting thing. So from going from you've heard about my career. So coming into this space right now, where a lot of our clients are issue advocacy or nonprofits, or their sort of goals here, whether it's public health or maternal health or environmental. You're looking at campaigns. So a lot of it's paid, some of it's not. But a lot of it, you're looking at like paid media campaigns, whether that be digital or TV or out of home. You have a message and you're trying to get it out in the best way possible. When I first went into this line of work, I remember thinking, coming from that organic background, like I was thinking how lame paid is, like a paid campaign. I don't know. I was just like, isn't that a cop out? Like you're paying for the eyeballs instead of trying to like make something go viral by like doing a cowboy meme. But I've really come around to it, and whether I mean even when it's paid, it still better be good, or else it's not going to make a difference. Um, so yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of like what I'm up to now, and I'm kind of digging into this, to all of the aspects of like these types of like campaigns and engagements, and like making brands sustainable and rebranding brands and messaging, and like really honing in on that. And that's like 2 decades of coming from 2 decades of just like sort of rolling around in the mud on this, and picking up all of that info. And so it's really kind of like fascinating. It's refreshing to be in this place where like it kind of makes sense to have a career path like I had. And I love it. I never thought I would be in a position to be like a businesswoman. You know, last like I think it was like last month or so, I got some sort of recognition, and I have it on the wall behind me. I think it's some sort of citation for being like a businesswoman in New Jersey. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. There's just a concept of, I mean, brought in the idea of business. I'm still not very good at personally making money, but the idea of like being a business, um, being a professional, being an executive,
Yeah.
a creative executive, I never thought possible. It was always like creatives were relegated to sort of like the back room. They were like in like
Yeah.
the other,
Subordinate.
yeah,
Yeah.
subordinate. So just I like it. I'm enjoying this ride. I love that the concept of empowering creatives. All my collaborators now, like I just want to give them like the space and the respect, um, that they need, just because I've learned the hard way, that's sort of how to get that and the value of that. So yeah, it's really fun. Thanks for letting me plug Moxie. It's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
It's pretty
You
awesome. Hmm.
well, you touched on something I'd love to tackle a little bit more, because as somebody who is male, I have perhaps a different perspective than you do on building presences in marketing and organically and paid, from a woman's perspective. And you said you're an all women agency. does that influence the kinds of
Yeah.
clients that you go for? Is that a particular point of
Yeah.
view that you push towards, or is it just this is what we bring to the table and we'll work with
Yeah.
the folks that want to use those skills?
Yeah. I mean, almost it's not all women, but it's
Okay.
mainly women. I would say
Women led.
women owned, women led, right? And we have a great. I mean, we only have one male employee. He's fantastic, Joe. Really fantastic guy. Um, yeah, they're. I think mainly we're pretty much all from male dominated professions. Um, I think a lot of us have come up in. I mean, we have such a variety of ages. We have our youngest is early 30s. Our oldest is in her 70s, right? So people who've come up in male dominated fields in the 70s, 80s, 90s, early aughts, um, with a lot of there's a lot of stories and a lot of like roughness in there. Um, a lot of sexism, a lot of experienced, just different things. A lot of trouble with balancing, let's say, motherhood and career and sort of understand having an empathetic understanding of things like that. So I think the idea of being like this different kind of agency, having a different relationship with clients, having more perspective on things. I mean, we're still badasses. We're still working too hard, but there's a certain, like, God, it's so cliche to say softness of. I'm not going to say that because it's not true. It's but there, yes, I do think there is a difference. I think we're really going after work that is more thoughtful, and we're being more careful about who we choose to work with in a way, and whether that's being an all women led, or whether it's because we're just sort of older and wiser. Yeah, that's a big part of it, for sure, for
I
sure.
appreciate that. It sounds to me like there's a different type of empathy, perhaps a different type of
Mhm.
perspective is such a generic term, but a different type of appreciation and consideration that you bring to clients, which, I ran a marketing agency when I was younger. I'm not sure I knew what the hell I was doing. I think I was just 31 and desperate to get out of my previous gig. Um, uh, Boy, that's a story for another time. And I'm sorry,
Can't wait.
PBS, anybody, what's
Feel
that?
free. We got a little bit of time if you want to delve into that. Sorry,
I
do
mean,
it.
I can. I don't know that it's terribly exciting. I
Yeah.
left. As we've talked about briefly, I was one of the early guys at Hulu. I left Hulu in late 2012, and one of the senior folks there was very generous, gave me an introduction to PBS because I'd moved back home to DC. I landed a job at PBS, and it was like going from, a Lamborghini on the Autobahn to a tractor on a one-lane highway, and the whiplash I experienced. I'm still experiencing neck pain. It could just be old. That's different. Um, and I loved, my coworkers at PBS. They were solid people. Some of them are even still there, and I appreciate that they do important work. I grew up on PBS, but I also recognized that it wasn't the speed I wanted to go at. And so after about working there 8 months, I used the excuse of a friend who wanted to have me direct a web series, which was, of course, completely made up, and left the job. And my dad, he's run retail marketing agencies for the last 40 years, had a client he wanted me to come in on to do some social media marketing. And that turned into some consulting, which turned into a full-blown agency. And the one thing I kick myself in the tail for is that this is 2013, 2014. This is the rise of influencers as a major economic force. And I totally whiffed on seeing the opportunity to build an influencer agency. I know. And it just kills me because, like, I followed influencers, I watched YouTube religiously, and I just didn't put two and two together because I was so focused on trying to build the model that I'd grown up with. And that, I was working with Monumental Sports, the Capitals and the Wizards. I was doing stuff with local culinary schools and, DC United and stuff like that. And I didn't see that there was a plain opportunity in front of me to take these, young, attractive talents and put them in front of
Right.
brands and marry the two together. And it kills me
You
because
know
I
the
could have
amount of
knocked that out of the park.
the opportunities we've squandered along the way.
I'm only going to push back on the term squandered because if it had occurred to me and then I'd
Then it would
ignored
have
it,
been, yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
squandering. I was just too
Yeah.
dumb to see it. That's my problem.
I had this conversation with Nathan recently, which was
Yep.
like, obviously, as you discussed on your last podcast, personal branding and creating a personal following is one of the hardest things to do. And I have certainly not squandered. I mean, just not taken any opportunity that I've had to build my own personal branding. You know what I mean? Like any press that I've gotten, my response has been to go deeper and deeper undercover. Turn off my own social media accounts, turn off, never even try. But it's okay. Listen, we learned from this. There's got to be something else in the future that you're going to tap into. You're going to know to tap into, and when you're ready, you're going to be ready.
Well, let me see if I can help here, because let's turn your marketing brain onto me in this podcast as an example. Like if I'm starting this, relatively speaking, I'm not starting from scratch, but I'm starting at an early level. What are some of the best practices I can employ to really build up my social presence, right? And maybe that's a short form account of some nature. Maybe it's the longer form email, blog, something or other. But like, what in your mind constitutes best practices for building your brand and brand identity?
You mentioned this in your last account, which the hard thing to do, which was put together these sort of sizzle reels. I'm gonna point you to, and I think there's a woman who has a great podcast called The Cutting Room Floor. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah, I mean her. So speaking of reels and stuff, like her reels come up all the time on my feed, and she puts together some great sizzle. And they're the kind of short form content that's beefy enough to give you something, but not long enough that you don't need more. Right? Like you got to sign up for it, or you got to follow her to know things to do it. Um, so I've been really, when I think of, and I have not, to be honest, ever marketed a podcast specifically, but watching her has been to me a bit of a master class in learning how to sort of market your podcast, which is these just constantly feeding your social. I'm looking at her now. She has 101,000 Instagram followers. I think a lot of it's coming from Reels.
Okay. So let's even take that a step further and say, if you were going to promote yourself, you can't tell. I'm trying to give me advice so that you can reflect it back for yourself. Yeah. I just want to be very clear about the dynamic here.
I told, yeah. I know.
I'm trying. I'm really.
I know
that
was
to be
good.
about the podcast, really.
It's funny. It's funny. I had her. I've never actually had a chance to talk about her account, but I've been really eyeing it. So thank you for giving me an opportunity for that. But yeah, let's talk about you and I, or you
Sure.
as an id for I. How it's being consistent. It's having and I think a lot of it is like confidence in your own self and in your own brand, identifying exactly what that is and sticking with it. And I think there's it's also not giving up and not being embarrassed when you have no likes and retweets. There's something that, for me, something that stops me from having my own personal voice online, is sort of the lack of engagement, right? That is a sort of reflection of like a little bit of self-confidence, a little bit of a little bit of fear, like sort of being judged, and also just having that history of being on a bully pulpit, where running a bully pulpit as a brand, where I'm used to constantly getting feedback, whether good or bad, just at least having something. You have to be comfortable with tweeting into a void. in order to and just keeping going. I don't know. I mean, I feel like yes, and I'm telling myself to do this. Like keep talking. Whether it could be Twitter, it could be LinkedIn, it could be TikTok, it could be Instagram, but like just keep going. Like stop being afraid of yourself, really, because you're the reason you're not doing it is because you're afraid of like your own fear. Like it's just you're afraid of not being seen or understood or paid attention to enough, or I think that's it. Consistency, knowledge of self, brand, and like get off to the races.
Well, first of all, not only are you echoing advice that has been said on this podcast time and
Mm.
again, but you make it sound pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to
Consistency.
throw it back to you. What's stopping you from doing exactly that? Is it just the fear, um,
And
you know?
I'm in therapy,
Okay,
Jason.
good. Hey,
I'm working through it.
welcome to the club. Yep. All
Yeah.
right. Good.
we're
Good.
we're, we're, we're working we're
Yeah.
working through it, but I will say I admire all of you who are doing it, especially those of you who are successful at it, but especially those of you who keep doing it, and like you're getting like one like from your high school creative writing teacher, and you know what I mean, like, but
It's a
you're going.
specific and deep cut there, but yes, that's exactly who likes my stuff. Thank you.
I do big shout out to Miss Hefline, from Red Bank Regional High School.
Dixie
So
Baker, Bethesda,
yeah,
Maryland.
you
Anyway.
get it. Okay. So yeah, just let's keep going, and let's not be
Yep.
afraid. And you're helping with this. I suggest everybody go on Jason's podcast right now, just to sort of try to like build up yourself, understand like who you are, come in completely unprepared, and be impressed with yourself that you could make it through 50 minutes and not like crumble.
I you've done a brilliant job, and I'm saving that call to action for many a social media call out. Thank you. That's beautiful.
Appreciate it.
I want to take a step back and just reflect what you've said, because I think there's some really important things here to call out. The first being, as I joked a moment ago, you are echoing what I hear consistently from later stage creators, from folks who are in marketing and PR, on the distribution side, right? The thing that separates folks from, those that can't is just the willingness to do it when nobody's listening. Um, every advice I've ever heard about building a Twitch channel, right? You got to stream as if you've got 1,000 people watching at the same time, even when it's just your mom who doesn't really understand what's happening. It's so much harder to do as you get older, because our, our structures are well put together, right? We are used to the people around us who give us positive feedback. Then when we put ourselves in a new space, it's not like being a little kid where we don't know the difference. And I say little because some of these kids are only 13 and they're just putting it out there. But like the fact that we are ensconced in our own little worlds makes this even harder, because no feedback is worse than negative feedback, because it sounds worse. Like yelling into the wind is almost worse than being told to be quiet by an audience that's at least paying attention. But I really love the drive behind what you're saying of like, just get it done, right? You wouldn't tell a client who's they're building a brand new, company, they're building a new, physical good or something, like the solution isn't just to spend money. They have to also embody the brand, and we have to be willing to do it when nobody's listening, right? None of that is differentiated between an individual building a brand and a company building a brand, or an individual building their subject matter expertise and a brand that needs to sell goods or services. So I just want to call back out to you. It's very clear to me, the path for your clients, the path to do this right. I get how much harder, trust me, as a podcaster to the nobodies. That's not true. I people who listen,
I
but
love your podcast.
oh, thank you.
You're
That's
gonna
very
have
sweet.
you're gonna have one listener
I'll take it.
coming up,
But
and
more to
that's
the point, you have to pretend like there's nobody listening and still be okay with it, right?
correct. Yeah.
So my
Right.
challenge to you as we wrap up, you've spoken brilliantly and eloquently about, building NJGov from zero, and now
Mhm.
working in this great, firm where you get to work with other brilliant women and one man who,
Yep.
who help
Yep.
you support what you want to do. What can you take away? What are you going to do next to build the Pearl brand? What's it going to be?
This is so great. I think I'm gonna start I'm going to take your inspiration and I'm going to start like talking into the void.
You'll have one listener guaranteed right here, I promise.
When you're, you know, in journalism, especially photojournalism, you are wallpaper. You don't have a political opinion, you don't have a voice in the room. You're not really like a person, you're a vessel for getting a kind of, you know, in a sense, right? This is how you sort of learn, or you can think of yourself, or if you're too much of a thinker like I was, like you're just this vessel for getting the story, and you don't have a voice. You know, working through it, getting older, learning how to have a voice, learning that you are like a person, no matter what your identity is or how you identify or your background. Like you are a person, you have a perspective and you have a story to tell. That's it, knowing it and like moving forward and doing it. And I think I'm gonna start today. I think you might see me tweet for the first time in months.
Can't wait.
Later today. So stay tuned, everybody.
Tag me, I'll follow, I'll re-promote. Let's make it happen. I'm in.
Awesome.
Well, Pearl, it has been a tremendous pleasure to have you. Thank you for your time. Where should folks go to follow you? Let's build you a little bit of an audience here. Where should we direct them? I
love it. Pearl Gabel, at Pearl Gabel at all social media accounts. PearlGabel. Find out more about Moxie Strategies at Moxie, MOXIE -strategies.com. And keep in touch, guys. I love to talk to like-minded folks, and I can't wait to see more folks on your podcast. Can't wait to keep in touch with you, Jason.
Well,
really appreciate
Pearl, it's been a pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.